I never really struggled as much with emotional eating. What I struggled with, but it's why I'm so good at fixing it, is because I'm good at fixing emotional suppression. Emotional eating just happens to be one of the avenues, but it's the same thing with emotional drinking. It's the same thing with emotional distraction, like scrolling, or what I was guilty of, emotional ambition. I think that's where my journey started, around like, I have these icky feelings inside, don't know how, don't want to address them, so let me achieve through them. I think that's where the achiever or the doership started for me. I think for me is I didn't know how to handle these feelings of isolation, not good enough, not intelligent, all of these things. So I go, but if I go achieve a bunch of stuff, I feel better. But the dangerous part of that is it's still suppression. You know, these parts of me were never seen. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. I am your host, Jared Hamilton, and today you have a co-host. You like that?
I like that joke.
And today's co-host, Ryan Kassim. So this is an interesting episode. I've been wanting to do this episode for a while, but the timing just wasn't right because I wanted this to be in person, as well as the right person to do this particular episode with me, because I'd been wanting to do this for a while. And then at the same time, a handful of you guys, the listeners, have been asking for this. A lot of people have been wanting to know the Jared Hamilton origin story. Like, where did things start at? The whole 9 yards to get us to where we're at today. So I'm going to try to make it where it's not long as fuck. But I thought it would be another dynamic instead of me just giving you my little autobiography, if I was actually interviewed for my own show. And that's why I wanted Ryan to interview me, because we were talking off camera about this. But I wanted someone that one is really good at listening. Number two, understands how to interview, how to ask the right questions, but also someone who I trust enough to have this conversation with and everything. And so Ryan was the obvious choice.
I'm honored.
What did you say?
I'm honored.
Oh, I thought you said weird.
I think I still have my morning voice.
That's right.
Where it's very deep.
That's right. We're recording a little earlier.
It's not early.
No. Earlier than we normally do.
I guess, yeah.
I don't ever record a podcast before. Right. But I don't ever record a podcast before like 2 p.m.
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
But that's what we're doing here. But I thought I'd make it a little bit more fun. I have no idea what these questions are. So I told Ryan the synopsis of like what I'm wanting to do here. So, and he goes, okay, not all heroes wear capes. And so take her away, I guess.
I just take over the Dieting from the Inside Out podcast.
With great power
comes great responsibility.
Well, I think before we get started, I'm curious what you really want to pull from this. Like, what do you think at the end of this? What do you want to pull from all of it?
That's a good question. I don't know. Just a combination of what's supposed to come out, if that sounds kind of weird. But a level of understanding for everyone, like who Jared Hamilton is, and like just the story of to getting to today, I guess. Like I said, because like in general, like this is not an episode I would just be like, let's do this, because it just feels kind of weird. But I've had a lot of people request, like, I would love to know your origin story. I want to know how it all came to be and all that kind of thing. So I just don't want to make it like a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah. Well, very well could be.
Yeah. So, but we've got about an hour and a half on these memory cards. So,
feet go up. Is that going to block it? Anyways, yeah. So, I think for my own curiosity, when it comes to starting it, because obviously, I want to start from the beginning. Okay, so in your eyes, what's like the earliest childhood memory that you have?
Shit, we're going all the way back.
Yeah, it's origins.
That's right. I usually my childhood memories don't usually start till around like 6, 7 ish or so.
Just from like, because I think when I can like, you just don't remember until like you remember. So,
right.
What was the first specific memory that you can recall?
If I sat with it longer, I'm sure I could come up with more. But the one that when you said earliest age remembering, it was this one particular present I got for Christmas when I was like 7. It was, did you ever play with Great Adventure toys?
Is that like the mouse?
No, they're like, they're they're basically like little action figures, but they had setups like you could get a forest, you could get a pirate ship, you could get a castle, you could get all these whatevers, little cowboy town, and they all came with their little characters. But I always wanted the castle, got it for Christmas, cha-ching. But like, so like 7 years old is when, it's like probably one of my earliest when I got the castle. So
Christmas is actually, it's funny because you,
I love Christmas
you love
time.
Christmas, hate Halloween. We just have to throw that in there if we're going to tell your true story. Why is Christmas so important to you? Because I guess I'm genuinely curious because you were obsessed with Christmas. Like you were already watching Christmas movies.
Yeah, I love Christmas.
Why is that so important to you?
I don't know. I've just always, I've never thought about it. I think a lot of good memories for me as a kid came from Christmas time. It always felt magical to me as a kid, which was interesting because growing up, hopefully parents, if your kids are listening, cover their ears. We never did Santa. Like growing up, my parents never wanted to do the Santa stuff, where the way my mom worded it was, didn't want to set us kids up for heartache cause that day that comes when you realize Santa's not real. So we never did Santa, and they're like, we can make it magical. And so, we had our own little stuff we did for Christmas, but probably because my family was big Christmas people and whatnot. So,
So would you say a lot of your core positive memories come from the holidays?
yeah, in general, not just Christmas, but Christmas was the big one, I guess. As a kid, I was a big like gimme shit, like But So
What's like a core memory that sticks out to you?
So my most core memory, it's super easy. It was interesting. I was actually talking about this in therapy not too long ago, but it was almost I was probably 10, 11, 12-ish, and back when I was at my childhood house, I remember like going into Christmas morning, like we didn't sleep. Like we're like, parents are like, you don't wake us up till 6, like that stereotypical child on Christmas morning. But I remember I woke up at about, I think 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just looked out my window because I always liked white Christmases. And being in Indiana, we get snow. And I remember like I was at 2 in the morning, I go, oh, it's Christmas. And there was no snow on the ground when I went to bed. And I opened up the curtain, and it was like a Christmas card. It was like I remember looking out the window, and I was like, it's weird. Usually as children, you're not like, at least in my experience, like speechless at beauty. Like that's like, I feel like that's a more mature thing. I was like, because I'm actually surprised I can remember this vividly, where our street light wasn't like an LED light. It was a little bit more red tint to it, or that orange tint. And it literally, like, you could see the glistening snow coming down. Not a single blade of grass was sticking through. It was probably like 6 inches of snow. And it was just our backyard. Every little toy and piece of trash or whatever in the backyard was covered. And it literally looked fake. But then the street corner light had put this like beautiful like bronze hue on everything. And I remember just staring until I fell back asleep.
That's beautiful. I love that, because I think it's interesting when you talk about Christmas, because it sounds like your most cherished memories.
You could say that.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Why don't you give us a little insight into your childhood and growing up?
As far as
what was, growing up with 3 other siblings, what were your relationships? Your mom and dad.
So I'm one of 4. Have you met all of my siblings?
I think all but Ellie.
So I'm one of 4. I'm the second oldest. It goes Adam, Jared, Alex, Ellie. And age wise, Adam and I are 14 months different between us. So growing up, it was either best friends or worst enemies. It was either like we're best buddies or like let's fight. I'm gonna butcher this. I want to say Alex. We got several other ages between us, and then Ellie is the youngest. Like she was the little girl. All of us were homeschooled, so like my parents homeschooled us all K through 12. So I'd never seen the inside of a public school until like it was time to go to college. I guess I'd seen the inside. Like I went to like sporting events or whatever with friends, but otherwise I'd never been anything like that. It's funny. I tell people like I was homeschooled, and they go, that makes sense. Like there was it's like there was something that makes all this sense. but generally always struggled with learning in general. Like college was going to school in general. It wasn't even like a big school. It was like a community college. Nightmare for me. It was horrendous. Took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree. Like dropped a class every semester. It was a horrible experience.
What made it so horrible?
I did not feel ready. I felt like I was missing a lot of stuff. Like, trying to think of how to say, I absolutely love my parents. I think they did a great job. I don't want anything to come across as the wrong context or disrespectful, or anything, but like there was a lot that I missed out on, that I felt, that I wasn't ready for, in a few different areas. And so like I lived in the tutoring center every single day, in all these different areas. It was like the college was one of the worst areas and most stressful probably to date for me. So I think it's why like to this day people talk about like my analogies and storytelling and when I'm teaching. I think it's because like I struggled so much with learning that like I had to do that shit for my own for me to actually to understand stuff, you know what I mean? So I was one of four, did all that, grew up in a small town in Indiana. I still live like 30 minutes from my hometown. We just live in Indianapolis now. And Ryan has a room at my house. And then, that's pretty well kind of like the little Cliff Notes version.
Okay. So let's backtrack a little bit. So you said you're one of four. What was your relationships like growing up
with
my
your
siblings?
They were good. We always were really close. But I would say they were your pretty normal familial relationships. One of the things that we did though when I was probably 13, well, so a couple things. And right around when I started to get into teenage years, I dove into a couple major hobbies of mine. The first hobby was drums. I don't know how that became a thing. I don't know if I think I always liked drums, but then we had a family friend who went to this music shop and like 30 minutes from us, and I always thought it'd be cool to go there, and so we got me drum lessons, and I ended up being a student there for like 8 years. Went through 3 of their instructors, and it was like this. It was my thing, like before fitness, before all this stuff. Drums were my big thing. It was actually my first. Denny Dixon is his name. What's funny, I don't know if I told you this. You know what? I'll still go see him. Like I'll still go see Denny. He's 80, and still teaching drum lessons. Yeah, he's a gangster. But I'll still, if he's still alive, I still go see him every now and then. But he was like the first ever like mentor coach I ever had that actually made me uncomfortable. Like there was a lot of lessons I like walked down to there in tears because I was just challenged in ways. Denny got a little loud. I mean, if you had some drumsticks thrown at me, like that, like, well, you gotta pay attention. Like, and it would like go right past my head. Denny would never hurt me, but like I was pushed and even actually what's funny is Denny and I were talking about this and he goes, I knew exactly how close to push you. He goes, and every bit of that was intentional. So whether that's good or bad, like yelling, throwing drumsticks, but Denny was my first major coach or mentor, and that really pushed me in ways that I'd never been pushed before. And I was a really good drum player. Like I literally was, like Denny said, I was gifted. And then I thought I would be gifted with other instruments. Oh my gosh. I tried guitar, I tried piano. I started playing other instruments and it was awful. So I still like will play drums to this day. Not nearly obviously as serious or anything, but I'll still go mess around. But so then I got into that, but then one thing that helped with my siblings as well, because they never did anything like that. But when I was about 14 or 15, that's when we found martial arts. So, and then we started doing those together, like his siblings. So my older brother, we were at a county fair in our hometown, and there was like a martial arts studio that was there, like had some promos. So my older brother, Adam, said, oh, I want to go to this. And I go, I just didn't want to do it. Adam does. So I wanted to do it too. And ironically, that was a pretty pivotal moment, like in this whole origin story, because if I never would have went to that martial arts school, I don't think I would be where I'm at now, because that's what started my love for my fascination with physiology, and that led to coaching, and that led to meeting Shelby. Like, I never really thought about that. Like, now Adam's going to be able to just like, hey, motherfucker.
Adam gets major points right now.
Well, what happened was he wanted to start doing this these classes, and I go, I'll do it. But I was only like 14, 15, something like that. And then ended up staying there and like continued to like be a member of the school. And then did that for years. I want to say probably the next 6 years straight, 8 years straight. Like, but then it ended up being a whole family thing. Like, because Adam and I did it, and then my dad was doing it. And then my little brother was feeling left out, but he wasn't old enough for that art. So my dad started the other, like another art with him, so Alex could be involved. Ellie and my mom never had any interest, which is fine. But like all of us boys were there. And then Alex was doing this. And so now I wanted to do it. Then Adam wanted, we all ended up like going to that school. And then ironically, it's the same school I met this cute little 13-year-old girl in when I was little. And now that's Shelby. And then that ended up being my first job, like really fast. I know we're jumping all over the place, but then fast forward even more, they hired me as an assistant instructor because I like soared through the ranks. I was naturally helping other students, and he's like, can I just hire you and help teach? And so when I was 16, I started working there as an assistant instructor. So I was doing one-on-ones, I was teaching classes, I was working with preschoolers, I was working with 60-year-olds. So I think that maybe also why, like I'm comfortable working with anyone or talking with anyone. And all I know is coaching. Like literally, like I've been professionally coaching for like 13 years, but before I started coaching here, I was coaching in that stuff. So like all I know is coaching. So there was that. And that's where I found my love for working with people. So, and met my wife. And then that's where I do jujitsu at to this day. So you want to talk about like full circle. It's kind of crazy.
Absolutely. Well, I think you just said a lot.
I did.
Which is
my podcast.
Which is good. No, it's mine now. But I think I actually want to go back to Denny.
Of course you do.
Well, I think because we've had conversations off camera about how instrumental this man was in your life. So I'm curious, just at what age did you start seeing him, and why do you think he was the right person to help mold you at the time, and what influences and things do you pull from that you really that make you wanted to go back to him years later?
That's a good point. I don't know if I know the answer to a couple of those. I know why he was the right. I think there's a level of like why he was the right one is I don't even think I thought of it as an option. Like this is just who mom's paying, there was other, but it like never even crossed my mind to like, I want to work with someone else. And here's the thing. I love Denny. Denny would like, we would like joke, it'd be all this, but he was still so serious. But where the struggle and where the pushing happened was, I remember is when he went into the whiteboard, I'm like, oh fuck. I would get like anxiety because a lot of because when he went to the whiteboard, he was writing, like music theory, because drum music theory is it's not the same. Like it's different than other instrument music theory. So, but he wouldn't just give me the answers. He would literally write these fractions and these different levels of music theory for drums and like cadences and time signatures and all this stuff. And he's like, but then I would have to figure it out. And he's like, cool, what's missing? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, think about it. I'll wait. I'm like, like, yeah. And as like a little kid, I felt ignorant. And so then like Denny would actually like, I don't know if this was just his personality. Looking back, it's just his personality, but he would like get frustrated with me and all this stuff. But I also like know if it was a bad situation, my parents would have ripped me out. Like there've been other situations with other stuff in life that they're like, nope, these people aren't good for you. And they'd like rip us out. Never did that with Denny. Mom loved Denny. My grandma loved Denny. Like everyone loved Denny. Well, but otherwise like it just, I just knew that was, I guess there was this deep down sense of knowing that it was where I was supposed to be. But I mean, he pushed me like right to that edge of like, I don't like this. I'm sure there were points where I would say it was a little too hard, but ironically, I was talking to Denny probably a year ago. Like I stopped, like I was in the area and I just popped by to see if like, because he has students still, but he had a no-show at the exact time I showed up. He told me he had other older students, like people in their 30s and 40s that he worked with when they were like 10, 11, 12. He said, hey, I want you to do for me or for my son what you did for me. And I think this was just a thing. There's something that he did where he was an amazing teacher, but there's a level of, I don't even know how to explain it. There's a level of like understanding and pushing and growing that he used drums as a catalyst to happen. You know what I mean? I think there's probably a level of correlation. What I do now is like that. I'm sure, like, even to the extent what you do, like you and I both take a very similar approach with our coaching, right? Like where we, like, yes, health is important, nutrition is important, all this stuff, but I feel like that's not like our thing. Like I feel like it's a tool for levels of growth that makes everything grow, you know? And I feel like in a weird way, that's what Denny used something just like playing drums as, and I don't know, maybe that's why I use this in the facet that I do, is because I've never considered myself a fitness person. Like, yeah, I don't want to die early. I want to be healthy. I want to live a long time and move well. But I've never been the person that's like, I'm bored, let me eat chicken. Or, oh, I'm bored, let's go on a walk and go work out. But at some point we'll talk about this, I'm sure. But like I'm obsessed with personal development and bettering yourself and growing, but you can't neglect the physical self and still grow. Like the body is the subconscious mind, the way people like Joe Dispenza talk about. And so for me, I almost view it as the same way now that we're talking about it. It's just Denny used teaching drums as a tool to push massive growth and development in kids, and I was one of them. But kind of in the same way with coaching now, I just use weight loss and fitness and stuff as a tool to make others' lives get better. Like, because if you fix your relationship with yourself, you touch everything. Your relationship with your spouse is better. You're more present with your kids. You're happier on vacation. You're having better conversations. You make more money at work and that kind of stuff.
No, I really like that. I think it's interesting because you bring up two specific instances so far where you felt challenged and things that almost brought you to the verge of tears, right? You brought
no, there were tears, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad.
Yeah, and brought you to tears. So you brought up college, right, as one, feeling very ignorant and not ready and prepared, right? And then you have these drum lessons where you're pushed to a place where you're uncomfortable, but you're kind of forced to grow. So I'm curious, you know, when it comes to young Jared, right? Because it sounds like to me that there was some sort of block in your own self-worth growing up as a kid, right? And your own, like, maybe belief in, like, once you're presented with like outside real world things.
Sure.
So I'm curious, you know, what was your growing up life like, right? Because you mentioned you're homeschooled, right? And you felt that it wasn't, and again, we're not here to shoot down anything that happened. We're just here to tell and your side of it and how you feel about it. But, you know, with your homeschooling life, right? I'm curious how you felt once you started seeing these real world challenges come up. What did that bring up for you in terms of looking back at your childhood? Like, did you feel like angry because you weren't prepared enough, or like you were behind? Like, I'm curious, like, what that brought up for you.
It's one of those things. Let me just preface it with this: this is always a harder subject to talk about, not because I'm not open. Is I don't want anything to ever come across like I don't appreciate what my parents did, or it's disrespectful or anything like that. But I also think there's a level of these stories help a lot of people. Because again, I love my parents to death. They did the absolute best that they could do with, and they had all amazing reasons for wanting to do it, right? Like, so, and that's what they felt compelled to do because they felt that was in the best interest of us, and they worked really hard and all these things. So, but specifically to answer your question, it was one of those things. Was one of an insecurity I have, I still have to this day, but that started was around my intelligence. I've never, especially as a kid, I always felt behind the 8 ball, so to speak. And it was always a big thing. Like, it was like growing up, like, so like right now at the time of filming this, like I was talking about this with some people, like being the homeschool kid is like, okay, you're like because so many people are unhappy with the systems in place in like politics and government and stuff, a lot of kids are like, parents are opting to homeschool their kids. But back then, like, it was like, you're weird. Like, something's wrong with you. Like, you don't go to school. Like, what's wrong with you, fucking dumbass? Like, there's a lot more of that. So it's like, that's where the stigma of like homeschool kids, like, are scared of light. Like, you know, like the old vampire movie, like literally like you can't get them wet. Like there's a lot of those stigmas, at least when I was going through it. So even though like they would say like, well, statistically homeschool kids like get better grades, but that didn't negate how I felt, you know, even if that was true. So for me, it was just always a lot of insecurity. I wouldn't say there was any anger or anything like that, but there was a lot of like anxiety and stress and insecurity, and even maybe a little bit of shame that tied to that insecurity around like, I'm not smart enough, or I'm behind everyone. People are talking about things that like school subjects and events, and I'm just like, I've never heard of that. Like, what is that? I have no idea what you're talking about. And then feeling kind of excluded from the conversation, you know, like if around whatever. So there's a lot of that.
Almost like it was hard for you to feel like you belonged in certain circles.
You could say that, but like, I also think this was also one of those things where I almost, looking back, like I think it's where like the either like a people pleaser started to come out, or also like these abilities to like have conversation with people, is because it was like by proxy, you know, like a lot of back, like when I was younger, homeschool kids, they were uncomfortable in social situations. So they would either like go inward and like seclude themselves, or like, okay, we're going to learn to talk to people. We're going to learn to whatever. And I feel like that happened. For me at least, where like I felt myself like wanting to naturally retract, but because of these feelings, but ended up and I learned more to how to have conversation and how to be outgoing and make friends and things like that. So
yeah, well, I mean, I could definitely see how it could feel like that, right? If you're, you know, you're not among what is the norm, right? You feel like you're on the outskirts.
Well, because the thing is, though, even though we had other stuff going on, like it was like because I wasn't around all these kids all the time. Like there were like homeschool groups, but they were like or going to church and church kids and stuff, and that's all fine and dandy. But like it was still, I still felt, whether it was true or not, I still felt like something was missing. You know, like if the only people I see for the most part are other homeschool kids and like the kids like at the time like at church, like it's still like not a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure there's levels of that.
So when you say something was missing, I guess, can you pinpoint what you think was missing?
I don't know. I would say probably along the lines of, I can think of it. I just can't, I'm having a hard time verbalizing it. I felt like it's that thing started to get fixed when I started going to that martial arts school.
And maybe was it community that you?
It may be, it may be that. It may be community. It could be more friendships. It could be a level of, because of more of the people, and because I basically had to learn to communicate. I had to learn to interact and all this stuff because I was teaching, right? And all these things. So I think it may have been a level of whatever that maybe was missing, but at the same time also, like, when you're these younger ages, like everything also feels kind of funky as well. But
yeah. So you started going to martial arts when you were 14, 15.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So the age before 14, 15, can you picture what your younger self looked like during that time right now? So what would you say was the biggest thing that version of yourself needed at that time?
I've actually been talking about this in therapy a lot. Told you you're going to do this. I think reassurance more than anything,
Reassurance for...
I think that just the thing that comes up in therapy when we're talking about this is just that it's all going to be okay. So,
Did you feel at moments it wasn't?
oh, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, for sure. So,
So what would you say to reassure that version of yourself?
literally just that, like validate what he's feeling. Like, hey, it's okay. You have every right to feel these things. But also like in like inner child work, like big brother vibes, that it is all going to be okay. Like it all worked out better than you could have imagined. So,
So then you have this young version of yourself, right? Who, like you said, it just needed to be reassured that it was all going to be okay, right? Because I'm sure that version of yourself, do you remember what specific feelings you felt during that time, like leading up? Because like you mentioned, you said community played a huge role in filling what was missing. But do you remember specifically, the struggles you were feeling like leading up to that age? Because it's interesting just to note, like when I was kind of letting you talk and dictate, like you jumped around specifically to certain stages and you skipped certain stages of your life.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
Because it was like a massive time jump, right? But you completely skipped over like that in between stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even realize I did that.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what was that version of yourself missing, and at what was the, I guess we know what the turning point was, but what was that younger version of yourself missing at that time?
Like when, like that, like let's say 11 to 13. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? Like from what we've been talking about, what do you think?
It sounds like you felt pretty isolated. Like it sounds like
I would agree with that, but I don't know what I needed to fix that.
When was Denny? What age?
Denny was 13, I think. Yeah, 13.
So it sounds like to me, and I don't, we haven't really talked about your relationship with your parents, right? And we could go there if you want to, but it sounds like to me.
Well, we have time to. We're already fucking 30 minutes into this thing.
Yeah. But it sounds like to me, like Denny was that first, you can call it father figure. You can call it impactful mentor.
He was, cause I still like, even when I was that young, I still, my mom and dad were still together. We were doing all the martial arts stuff with my dad, like classes every day, playing around at the house, going to like martial art camps, like all of the things. That's why, but Denny was, I don't know if this makes sense. Denny was like my Yoda. You know what I mean? Like Denny, he's an older male mentor. So yeah, you could say that there's a father figure, but I feel like that's not quite accurate. I feel like it was, I'm trying to think, like even Yoda may sound different. It was just like an older, wiser, because he was way older than my dad too, right? But it was almost like that wise grandpa.
Well, you talked about, it was interesting, you talked about how you needed reassurance during that time, right?
Just in general, yeah.
When do you feel like you started to receive that?
I don't think I did. I think that's a really interesting question. I think this was actually, because I've talked about this in other content where like I never really struggled like with this emotional stuff that like I teach. I never really struggled as much with emotional eating. What I struggled with, but it's why I'm so good at fixing it, is because I'm good at fixing emotional suppression. Emotional eating just happens to be one of the avenues, but it's the same thing with emotional drinking. It's the same thing with emotional distraction, like scrolling, or what I was guilty of, emotional ambition. So I think it wasn't one of those things where I ever got like what I needed. Actually, to be honest with you, I haven't gotten it until I went to therapy, and my therapist through inner child work showed me how to give that version of myself now what he needed. But I think that's where my journey started around like, I have these icky feelings inside, don't know how, don't want to address them. So let me achieve through them. I think that's where the achiever or the doership started for me. Just because it's like we talk about with emotional eating, like most people start emotional eating when they're little. It's because they don't know how to handle like the mom and dad's divorce. So they found relief in chocolate or whatever. It's like, that was that 6-year-old's version of doing the best that they knew how to do with. I think for me is I didn't know how to handle these feelings of isolation, not good enough, not intelligent, all of these things. So I go, but if I go achieve a bunch of stuff, I feel better. And then I found like, I think that's when I took on the identity of like, of like this achiever. Like, cause right when I got into the martial arts stuff, dude, it was like 0 to 100. I was like, to be honest, I was one of the best ones in the school. I got 3 different black belts in like the shortest time possible. I competed. I won the tournaments. I was that guy at this school. I was there every day. I was now an instructor. I had all these friends. And so I think probably at a young age, I established like, if I go achieve stuff, I don't feel as bad. But the dangerous part of that is it's still suppression. You know, these parts of me, it's like these parts of me were never seen. Like we talk about with like food. So,
So the parts of it you were never seen. So do you know specifically which parts?
Yeah. Like the ones we've been talking about, like the isolated, the not good enough, like that, the not intelligent, these kind of things. So
Were those things that, because sometimes when we replay those same stories in our head, were those things that were said to you, or were those things that you were just saying to yourself?
those were meanings I was extrapolating, or meanings that I tied at childhood. No, they weren't. I don't recall anyone saying those things, but that's the hard part with like when issues start as kids is someone doesn't have to. If like, because if a kid felt and internalized something, you know, like we see it like in the weight loss, like those skits I do. If like one of them I did that went really well. The mom was saying, "Oh, I need to lose weight," but the little girl goes in her head, "Everyone says I look like mommy. Does that mean I need to lose weight?" She internalized it. And then if she lives her whole life, that part of her going, "I'm fat and I need to lose weight," that was never got seen. I think there's a lot of those kind of things, but my stuff.
So you mentioned it wasn't, nothing was externally said to you that put those voices in your
Not that
head,
I can
right?
recall.
Was it ever the opposite though, where someone said, "You are smart, I am proud of you"?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you receive that?
Did I receive it? I think maybe momentarily, but the old things still were a little bit stronger, a little bit louder.
So you talk about how when you went into therapy, and that's when your therapist kind of helped you discover like to reassure yourself and all that. So it kind of sounds like the reassurance was giving yourself like a safe space.
Sure.
Right. So it's funny because like we talked about when you're kind of dictating and you're time hopping and all that stuff, you almost went immediately into martial arts and then Shelby.
I mean, to be fair, it was the exact same.
Exactly.
It was literally like the timeline was like then. Like it was like a year later.
So I want to go back to that. So tell me about Shelby.
So to be honest, what it was is the way the class at the martial arts school was set up, because it was in the same martial art, it was in Taekwondo, but they would have classes segmented, like beginner class, intermediate class, advanced class, like during the week. Well, Shelby was already a black belt, so I was this little white belt. But then every Friday was a combined class. So I'm like, but then just by the nature of being around at the school and all this stuff, we started talking, and I started getting feelings for this girl, but then like I was like, well, fuck, I can only see her once a week. I got to get this black belt as soon as fucking possible now so I can actually spend more time with her. So it actually was part of like, I think half the reason I also like flew through those ranks is because I want to spend time with this girl. The only time I can see her is here at this school because we were kids. Like she was like 13, 14. I was like 15, 16. So, and then that's where our relationship started. Well, it was much more friendship first because that age gap was a little, at that age it's hard, right? So, but otherwise that's where our dynamic started.
So walk me through right after that, you get your black belt, you start spending more time with her. What are some things you start realizing about this person that makes you want to be with them, literally?
I mean, I really liked her. I loved spending time with her. I loved the person she was. And it's all the I wouldn't say all the normal things from when you're like getting a crush on someone and first girlfriend, the kind of vibe. So it was I just enjoyed spending time with her and had those gushy feelings and stuff. So
at what point did you feel like she was a strong support system for what you needed?
I mean, I'd always felt that way from day one. You know what I mean? So.
So what does Shelby mean to you today?
No, you're really. Now you're really gonna get me going. I feel like I can't put it into words, to be honest with you. You know? I feel like saying everything doesn't even like scratch the surface. We were talking about this at dinner last night, but with her stuff in particular, she's been like it's an interesting, not interesting, but it's a super cool dynamic because most people's relationships, like marriage relationships, don't start until like you're pretty established in your life, like your 20s, 30s plus. You kind of established who you are and your career and all this stuff, but like we met when we were like 13, and which means there's lots of renditions of who you are, who you think you are, life, like so many ups and downs. And especially when you're like an ambitious psycho like I am, like there's a lot that goes that of it's not just like go to school, go to college, get a job, you know, have 2.5 kids, white picket fence, and like all that stuff. My journey's been very different. It's just from what I felt compelled to do. And literally the entire way, like there's not been like a question. There's not been a, you should work less. There's not been a, are you sure this is going to work out? Not a, literally it's been that like completely undying support that in like the epitome of, like unconventional love or I'm sorry, not unconventional, well, that too, but, unconditional love. It's, yeah. So
I love that because it almost sounds like, because we talked about that young version of Jared who needed, like you said, they needed that unconditional love. Right? For
sure. I'm sure there's definite layers of that.
So do you feel like she's just allows you to feel seen and?
Oh, 100, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, 100%.
What's something you'd like to say to her that she can watch this later on and hear?
I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is thank you. But like undying gratitude, like specifically. So
I love that.
Damn it, Ryan. I figured I'd get a little teary-eyed, but not like full-blown therapy session like this. Like I want my therapist to watch this. Like this is good.
This is good.
This is good.
Give me your tears. That know, but I think I think when it comes to thinking of your story, like I met you like 7 or 8 years ago, and like my version of you then was like this eat a donut a day type of fitness
Donut,
nutrition
2019
coach, Long John, Greenfield Long John kind of guy. And I think it's been cool to see, like the way I would describe it is like you started shallow as a puddle, right? In terms of,
I agree with you.
yeah. But that doesn't mean you weren't kind as hell and like genuine and all that stuff. But in terms of like emotional intelligence, right, and awareness, all that stuff. And I think, like I feel like I could almost like remember you like almost avoiding deep stuff.
Really interesting.
Yeah. But I think it's been really cool to see your development over the years, right? Because I think you started going to therapy. When did you start going to therapy?
5 years ago at this time,
5
probably.
years ago. So like 2019. So I'm curious because you've always said like, you know, part of it was because, you know, I talked about going to therapy and stuff like that. So I'm curious what that moment felt like for you when you actually made that decision.
So I basically logicked myself into starting therapy because you're right. You and a couple others were very instrumental with that, is because these other close male friends of mine were massive advocates of therapy. And I think that's what softened me to it, because I was the stereotype. I thought therapy was for suicidal psychopaths. Like why would anyone who's remotely happy go to therapy? Like that, and I was wrong. So, but what happened was, Shelby started going to therapy on her own because of some stuff she wanted to work through from her childhood and all this stuff. And so when it got around to it is I go, you know what? Because here's how I thought it. I go, well, I see people every single day in weight loss who think what they're doing is good for weight loss. And it turns out they are hurting themselves, right? So I think, well, what if I'm doing the same thing? What if I think I'm handling my stress well? What if I think I'm doing all the right stuff, but it turns out I'm doing the equivalent of a 1,200 calorie diet, like for mental health. But then I thought, well, if the more successful I become, the bigger my business gets, the more I grow, the bigger problems we'll get. It's like at every new level comes a new devil. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go to therapy as like a checkup to see how I'm doing. But I think I'll be fine. Bawled like a fucking baby on my first session. And I've been in it ever since. So,
Can you tell me about that first session?
Her name was Pamela. Pamela. What's funny was that my first therapist was very talk therapy. She didn't challenge, not very much. And it was a great first therapy experience. I was there for like 3-4 years, and it was very just much like talk therapy. Like she didn't like challenge or like lean in quite as much. Like this is way more aggressive than her therapy sessions were. But I think there was just all these parts that was just unseen. Like she was like asking me questions about very similar kind of questions like right now, like about like my childhood, about like labels I was given growing up, about what things I felt. And then I don't know if it was just the container of therapy. I just couldn't, or it was like these things were just now finally trying to get out. Because I think that's part of it too, is like when something's ready to come out, like you're not stopping it, you know? I don't know if you feel like this, but even to this day, when I go into therapy, even if it's something like that is seen, I walk in the door and I'm ready to cry. Like it's such an interesting thing. Like, I don't know if it's just the container itself does that for me, but it was a lot of this. And that's why I was confused. I told her, I go, I have told these stories or explained all this stuff. Basically very much of what I've talked about here so many times, like to friends or like talking with Shelby or whatever, but it didn't fucking matter. Like she hasn't heard it. And I don't know if it was the way she asked or like, well, tell me, you said that, but tell me about this. Like if it was that kind of stuff, but, and then I like slept for like 3 days. So
I think that's really cool. And I think maybe what you're touching on too, is I think sometimes when we're talking to those we're closest with, or we've already had conversations with, or maybe they're familiar with our story, we almost can predict how they're going to respond to it.
I'd agree with
right?
that.
So I think but also I think what you experienced was vulnerability.
Oh, sure.
Right. So tell me more about that. Like how has that transcended over these last 5 years? Like your vulnerability, your ability to communicate your feelings. Like how has that transcended over these 5 years?
I mean, I think it's been like the catalyst for a lot, like it's, I think it's allowed me to, because of the nature of it, I've now welcomed all parts of me with love and compassion versus the darker ones I used to hate. I used to hide. I used to like, what's wrong with you? Like a lot of like that, but understanding now, like that's just a kid, man, that's just a little boy. So I think it's allowed me to love myself more. And not just in an airy-fairy, like, oh, I feel this way. Now, because it will get to that point, because in the moment it doesn't feel like that. But showing up for myself in ways that I never had before. But then because I'm making me good, everything I touch is now better, right? Like we talk about, we are the foundation of everything. So now that my relationship with myself has improved so much, now I can be present more in my relationship with my wife or my relationship with my friends or whatever. But now it's transcended even more is because it all goes to everything else. I think it's the very fabric of why I'm able to like teach dieting from the inside out stuff so well, and why I'm able to like, I think there's a secret gift in this somewhere where it's why I can sit down with someone and know exactly what to tell them and know how to hold space for them and do for them what I essentially did for me. And it's transcended in every area fathomable. So.
No, I love that. And I think that was your intention or not going into therapy. That is like the result is you are able to hold space for others more. Yourself. I think you started with yourself more, right? The decision to go into therapy in the first place. Yeah. Without any expectations as well. Right. And now 5 years later you look at yourself and that's what I was saying. It's been cool to see your journey, and I texted you that the other day too because I was just thinking about it. I was like, man, that's really cool how you went from the donut a day man to us laughing out loud on that podcast when you said you loved cream-filled long johns. I was just like, what? To the emotional depth of an ocean floor, right? And I think that's what's been really cool. And that's why I'm honored to go through.
Are you getting misty-eyed right now?
I'm always misty. I start misty, but I think that, and I'm okay with getting misty because I think it's like, but that's what it is because it brings up a lot because it's really cool to see growth within yourself, but it's really cool when you notice it within your friends. Yeah, people that are very close to you. Yeah. Who have had very deep conversations with you, who have been there for you. And that's what I'm saying. It's just been really cool to watch your journey because you are this emotional being now. Like you're texting me stuff that's like incredibly deep or like spiritual or like about, vibrations or energy. And I'm just like, look at this motherfucker. Like
look at this guy. Look at this guy.
This Indiana motherfucker. but that's why like that was like, and that's what I said the other day. And I mean it when I say it to you. I'm super proud of you. And it's really cool to, and like, I can almost see like that younger version of yourself sitting there too. And like, it's really cool to see that version of yourself and you taking that version of yourself with you and nurturing it and like when your emotions come out because it's your inner child coming out, right? And like feeling seen by everyone, right, and including yourself. So I'm super proud of you, and I know that and it's weird. I know that you're gonna continue to do amazing things, just because like that's just what I know you to be, sure, right? And I think the only other question I have for you is the question I always ask all my guests on my podcast is, we know that life is composed of a lot of these little moments, right? So we've talked about a lot of them already on this podcast. Is there any other ones that sort of stick out to you where the current version of yourself sitting on this corner of the couch in Orlando, Florida can look at and say, man, I'm so happy that moment happened because I am where I am today because of that?
We've talked about several of the big ones for me. I mean, like specifically from like childhood and stuff?
It could be recent. I know you had a lot of revelations, recently as well.
The one that came up for me was actually just a couple years ago. it was actually because of it, I'm probably going to cry again. And then I actually cried in the moment when this happened. It was when as a person who has this like this doership side, like got to achieve and all this stuff. I had a moment where well, let me take a step back. There's never a moment of I did it, right? It's never a moment of I'm done, but there was the moment where it hit me that I'm like, you did it all. Not that I'm done, but like that, like you literally became it was evidence that I became the person that I've been trying to become for so long. And this was only like 2 years ago. And the funny part is it hit me in front of 750 people. So, because part of this stuff, like my whole life is I always wanted to be like, I always felt compelled, I always felt like I was meant for something great. Like, I don't know if everyone feels like that, but like it was literally like, I wrote a post about it recently where I literally felt like God is like, look, I have something super special. You're chosen. To do all this crazy stuff and to help all these people. It's weird. I put it in a post the other day, but it was like, God's like, look, man, I picked you because you have these gifts I'm giving you. You have no idea what they are. But like, this is what I want you to do. And I'm like, okay. And then it hit me like, so from then on out, like this like achiever self came out where I just wanted to help all these people and do all this stuff. And like, I knew there was something greater. So I went on this journey, if you will, of all this stuff. And I'd always gone to like read these books, gone to the conferences and done all these things. And I'd always been like the back of the room, always like, I want to be that one. I always want to, I just want to be the person on the front of the room. I wanted to be the one that had this success, that like helped this many people, that like is creating this kind of impact, that's doing all the stuff. And then years or even like a decade goes by, and the next thing I know, I'm, like as you're growing into doing these things, it's like watching your hair grow out. You don't know what's necessarily happening. And then it hit me. I was speaking on a stage in front of 750 people about all this stuff, about the success I've had, about what I would tell this entire room, about the impact that I've made and all this stuff. And I was literally teaching this entire room how to change their identity. And it wasn't until he had me do like a little like bulletless intro. And I go, hey guys, what's up? My name is Jared Hamilton. And it hit me right there. And like, I got choked up. And it ended up being a really moving situation, but I didn't realize it until it hit me that I'm like, I did it. So that was another, at least for me, a pretty one of those little moments. So,
and you're doing it, not just doing, right?
Right, but that was when I saw it.
Yeah.
So
seen.
Yeah.
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 I love that. Well, I love you, buddy, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your vulnerability. And I mean, there's a lot more we could have dived into.
We may do a part 2 and a part 3, but we're an hour in. We gotta go.
But I think this was a good start for people to get to know you, especially like not just your. This is like a little more depth.
Yeah.
So I love you, appreciate you, honored to do this interview, and honored to be your friend, of course. And yeah, man, looking forward to more years together.
Yeah, man. I
Happy
appreciate
birthday to you. Your birthday's tomorrow.
My birthday is tomorrow.
All right. Okay. And yeah, love you, bud.
I love it, man. All right, guys. Well, I don't know. This might turn into a part 2, part 3. I don't know, but this is one of the other reasons I wanted Ryan to do this is because I know he'll do this to me, and it takes a special person to be able to open up and be this vulnerable with, knowing that this is going to go out to hundreds of thousands of people. But like I said, I think it's important that you guys, if you're going to be here for this journey, I think it's important that you know who I am. The space is filled with a lot of people who don't want you to see all parts of them, and that just wants to be a highlight reel. And I think it's important that you guys understand who's behind the mic. But I didn't want to choreograph it. That's why I wanted to let go of the reins and be like, all right, let's see what comes out. So I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you, Ryan. I appreciate your friendship and your love in doing this. And if you aren't following Ryan, be sure to go over to Body by Ryan Fitness. There you go. I don't know. My brain's all fucked up right now. Body by Ryan Fitness. If you like my content, you'll love his content. Otherwise, guys, I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.